Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another 28 days and 28 verses. Today we're going to be looking at a verse out of Hebrews chapter 13. And I tell you, this verse today, it's one that I've both experienced as a recipient and as a giver. And I believe that this verse will have an impact on you. I know it's had an impact on my life. Hebrews chapter 13. The primary verse is verse 2, but I'm going to start with verse 1. Let love of the brethren continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing this, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Could you imagine that? Having had an angel in your house and you didn't even know it? I remember an early story that I heard years ago, and I'm sure this is one each of you have likely heard before as well, where a man comes to the back door of a family's home, and it's normally pictured in like the 1920s or 30s, and he asks, do you have some soup I could have? And so the family brings him in and gives him a bowl of soup, and the man, upon finishing his bowl, he says, may I say a prayer? And the family says, sure, and he says a prayer over the household, and then gets up and thanks the family and walks out the door, and the children run to the door to see what direction's the man going to travel in, only to not see the stranger. And they look to the ground, and it had been snowing, and they don't see any footprints in the snow. It's likely to have happened. I've heard that story a number of times, but a story which does stand out to me that is true from me hearing it from my grandmother a number of times, and even a couple of her sisters having told it to me as well, was she grew up on a farmhouse, and right in front of the farm was a railroad track. And this time period was in the late teens, early 20s, and they had a steady stream of hobos who would come to their house asking for food. And my great-grandmother lovingly, willingly gave people a meal each time they came to the house. It was sometime later that one of my grandmother's older sisters was dating at first and then later married a railroad worker. And he revealed to them a little secret, that the hobos would leave a little symbol on the side of the rails, whether it was a little flag or a little secret symbol, to let other people know that we're traveling, that this home will show you hospitality. Now, I asked a couple of times when I'd hear the story, well, did that change anything? Did that alter anything? And each time I was assured it did not. They continued to offer hospitality to the hobos who came to their door. I'd never heard of any of those hobos being angels, but it is very possible. You never know. In the book of Genesis, in chapter 18, Abraham experiences 3 visitors coming to his door, well, to the door of his tent, and he rolls out the red carpet, and he shows wonderful hospitality to these 3 strangers who end up being angels. One of them believed to be the Lord himself. What hospitality do we show to those who we meet on the side of the road? I can tell you from traveling throughout Africa, traveling throughout Mexico, Central America, I've been met with hospitality many times. So much so that I can only remember one time distinctly that I was not met with hospitality. And it was in Nigeria, and it was 2007. That's how clear I remember it. And my coworker and I were traveling through the deep bush. At this time, we were looking for what would eventually become our mission station. We were looking for the place that we felt the Lord was leading us to. And we would travel some of the most untraveled roads, oftentimes just a footpath or even a motorcycle trail. We came to this one spot, and we had stopped at a house to ask where the road led to. Were there villages beyond it? And the man of the house, who was in his late 30s, early 40s, he wasn't too keen on us being there. He didn't want to tell us any information, and eventually he just said, you may leave now. And so we started leaving, I tried to give him an audio Bible, which I had. And he would have found great joy in this audio Bible, but he still told us, you may leave. So we get in the vehicle and we start backing it up and turning it around. And as we begin to pull off, this elderly lady comes out of the house. And you can tell that this great discussion ensues between her and what apparently was her son. And as we start to drive off, she begins hitting him, and maybe it shouldn't be funny, but she begins hitting him with her walking stick. Clearly, she was upset that he had not shown us hospitality. That's how strong it was. I'll say though, one of the things that I noticed in returning to the U.S., I noticed hospitality having diminished a little, and it's very sad. We need to be a people who are quick to show the love of God to those, especially to strangers. We need to be quick to offer somebody a drink, to offer somebody a snack, to invite somebody in for a meal. Now I know you would say, well, a total stranger, this could be dangerous. We need to be ready for that as well. We need to be a people who are prepared. I always keep a little snacks and food and even fixings for a sandwich. If nothing else, when I've had people walk by my house here, and I have a lot of foot traffic by my house, if they ask me for food or if I see that there's a need, I'll say, well, wait a minute, and I'll come and make them a sandwich and bring them a drink. I've done that a number of times since being here. Now, yes, you will meet some people that are not legitimate. I had a gentleman who asked for a drink, and when I brought out a few canned drinks that I had to give him, he refused them because he said, oh, they're diet drinks, and I don't drink diet drinks. Now, also, I will confess, a part of my heart may not have been in the right place because I don't drink diet drinks either. And that's why I was so quick to give those away. But I remedied that and gave him another drink. But it then became obvious he was just wanting money. So what do we do in some of those cases? What do we do with that stranger who's really just trying to abuse our hospitality? At the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, that's between them and God. I can do my part. It doesn't mean that I have to act every time, but I do need to act with wisdom, but most of all, I need to act with love. The word of the Lord here doesn't say, but such a time is coming when you will no longer need to show strangers hospitality. No, God's word's just very clear. It says, do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers. For by doing this, some have entertained angels without knowing it. I want to read just a little bit of verse 3 as we close. Verse 3 says, remember the prisoners as though in prison with them, and those who are ill-treated, since you yourselves are also in the body. Now these prisoners that it's speaking of were prisoners in faith, believers who had been jailed and imprisoned. But I would like to think also that when it speaks of the stranger, we should entertain strangers as if we were that stranger. What would you want somebody to do for you if you were new to their community, or if you were a passerby, if you were just traveling and ran into difficulty on the side of the road? Would you like for somebody who lived in that area to stop and help you? I know a lot of people around my community who do that, and I'm sure they do that in many different communities. But it is something we must be reminded of. We must be challenged to meet that stranger with the love of God. I pray that this verse has an impact on your life as it has on mine. Until tomorrow, God bless.